Understanding the Deaf Community. Hey guys, hope you all are doing well. Welcome to today's episode of the Listen and Learn podcast. And in case some of you may be new here, we are reporting to you from Texas A&M International University. I am one of your hosts, Camila Cruz, and I am a student here at TAMIU, majoring in business administration with a concentration in business administration. And today we are here with my lovely co-hosts.
Hi, I'm Keira Valdez, a pre-nursing major here at TAMIU.
Hey everyone, I am Triana Nurreta and I'm freshman majoring in education with a concentration in bilingual emphasis.
And I'm Anali Tapia, also a student in TAMIU, and my major is in pre-nursing.
So, today we are going to look into an important topic about the deaf and hard of hearing community. We are going to break each topic into different segments and take a closer look at the experiences, challenges, and resources available to deaf people. It is disappointing to think that we often take the privilege of hearing for granted, and whether or not we realize it, it's selfish of us. Deaf people don't have it as easy as we do. They use a completely different way to communicate with those around them. With that being said, we are going to explore education, workplace inclusion, research ethics, and more.
There is actually so much to discuss about this topic, and we believe this conversation is a way for us to raise awareness about what it means to be deaf in today's world. From school and work to everyday interactions, the deaf community faces some distinct challenges, but they also have an amazing, vibrant culture that deserves recognition.
Exactly. And one thing that we really want to highlight in this podcast is that being deaf isn't just about lack of hearing, but it's an entire cultural identity. Deaf individuals have their own language, traditions, and a whole different way of experiencing the world and their daily lives. And today, we want to give you a closer look onto what that really means.
Yes, definitely. And with that, let's get started by discussing deaf education, mainly in Texas and worldwide.
Deaf education in Texas. Segment 1.
Education has been the key aspect of accessibility and opportunity for success. There are many programs here in Texas designed to help deaf students from early childhood through the age of 22 years old. One of the best-known institutions in Texas is the Texas School for the Deaf, located in Austin, which works towards this effort. And there are additional local programs that help deaf students transition into the educational system. The Texas School for the Deaf even offers scholarship opportunities for those who are committed for their education. It provides about 20 educational service centers for early childhood education from birth to the age of 5 years old. Public schools, which are accommodative for the students' need, and the Texas School for the Deaf, which is an American Sign Language and English school that offers both residential and day programming. The deaf education in Texas provides public and non-public schools options for families who are interested in their child's education.
Yeah, and the thing is that a lot of people assume that deaf students need to go to specialized schools. However, that is not the case. A lot of them are in regular schools with accommodations like interpreters and some technology devices that can help them work easier. But as great as these accommodations are, it doesn't always mean they get equal access to education.
That's true. And a study done by Rachel H.T. Leppo in her article titled Including Deaf and Hard of Hearing Students with Co-occurring Disabilities in the Accommodations discussion discusses that many deaf and hard of hearing students require certain accommodations to be fully engaged in their learning experience. These specific accommodations can include American Sign Language, interpreters, and in case some of you may not know exactly what ASL is, it is when a person creates signs using their hands, fingers, and facial expressions to translate what is being said in English. Additionally, deaf or hard of hearing students are also eligible for extended test-taking time. Lastly, real-time captioning is a resource that allows deaf individuals to visualize what a speaker is saying on a digital device, whether that be through a human or AI software translator. These accommodations make a huge difference in making sure that deaf students don't miss out on anything.
A great program to mention would be one like the Certificate of Deafness for Tuition Waiver, also known as CODTW. This program helps deaf students pursue higher education in Texas by waiving tuition fees. It is such a great resource, and it's really helping remove financial burdens. Plus, it is now easier to apply. Students who are eligible may apply for a certificate under a process described on the CODTW page, which now includes an ASL video presentation with captions to make the process clear. Applicants must be 17 or older or have senior status in high school to qualify. Programs like this are crucial in removing obstacles to higher education for the deaf community. However, even though programs like this are fantastic, deaf students in Laredo, for example, still struggle with access to specialized resources like qualified ASL interpreters in local public schools and universities. This can limit their full participation in both academic and extracurricular activities.
Deaf representation in media and society. Segment 2.
Another huge area where we have seen progress is in the media and society. The movie CODA, which also stands for Child of Deaf Adults, was a huge breakthrough for deaf representation in Hollywood. It not only won Best Picture at the Oscars, but also showcased the real-life experiences of deaf individuals. The movie made people realize that being deaf is serious and not something to joke about, and this movie opened people's eyes around the world.
Yeah, I really like the story behind the movie CODA. It gave the audience a different perspective on the challenges I didn't even know deaf people faced. For those of you who have not watched the movie CODA, it is about a young girl named Ruby, a hearing teenage girl from a deaf family. Growing up, Ruby faced challenges, such as bullying in her school due to her mispronunciation of words. This was because her parents could not correctly pronounce words when they spoke. As the only hearing member, she also assists her family in running their fishing business as an interpreter. One year, she decided to join her high school choir, which led her to develop a love for singing. As time passes, her teacher encourages her to audition for Berklee College of School, but she feels torn between pursuing her dreams and staying to support her family, because they depend on her heavily. It is an exciting movie, and I recommend people to watch it because it gives insight into the problems families with deaf members face.
One of the main actors, Daniel Durant, came out in Dancing with the Stars and impacted many people by seeing him dance even though he cannot listen to the music. He had to learn how to dance by only feeling the beat of the music and using 8 counts. It was a very challenging experience for him, but the good thing was that he still made it to the semifinals. This was such a huge representation that being deaf doesn't hold anyone back from accomplishing amazing things.
Of course, I get what you're saying here about the movie. This impact was at a local level. Here in Laredo, students and teachers from the Regional Day School program for the deaf talked about how CODA made them think differently about what deaf people are capable of. A lot of students are now thinking about going into professions like robotics, health sciences, and surprisingly into the cheerleading field. It is amazing and inspiring to see those kind of dreams being built by seeing real deaf role models on screen.
Yeah, I totally agree. However, even though this particular aspect in the film industry is improving, I believe we still have a long way to go. Unfortunately, several of deaf actors and creators still have trouble getting the same mainstream opportunities that other individuals are presented with. We need to push for more authentic representation where deaf roles are played by actual deaf actors, and where American Sign Language is not just some random afterthought.
That's a great point, Camila. I agree. And it's not just about Hollywood either. There's a huge need for more inclusive programs and opportunities for deaf students, where they can access quality education in a supportive environment that actually truly understands their needs. I also believe that when it comes to society, the inclusion of deaf individuals should not stop at entertainment. We need to make sure deaf people are included in all aspects of life, especially in places like schools and workplaces. One country that has done a great job is Norway. They made sign language an official language, which has allowed for better integration and representation of deaf individuals in all aspects of life. Not only that, but they also offer sign language courses in schools for both hearing and deaf individuals, This helps break down communication barriers and makes it easier for deaf people to interact in society. It's really a model we could take notes from. In addition, Norway has established nationwide policies to support deaf people in the workplace, like tax incentives for companies that hire deaf employees and other accommodations. These type of initiatives ensure that deaf individuals have the opportunity to contribute fully to the economy and their communities.
Global Perspective, Segment 3.
Now that we have included Norway, we're entering a view on a more global scale. Workplace discrimination against deaf employees is still a big issue. According to a report made by the Alexander Graham Bell Association, many deaf workers encounter challenges in communication, limited job opportunities, and a lack of accommodations in the workplace. And even when deaf individuals do get the jobs, they don't often receive the attention and support they need to succeed, like access to interpreters or captioning. As we can read in the article Deaf Employees and Workplace Discrimination by Lisa A. Goldstein, Quinn Matthews talks about her experience in a work field that did not have any intentions to accommodate her. I quote, "But she is also angry. I am angry that I can't just have the same expectations and respect as everyone else. I am angry that I get passed over repeatedly for jobs for which I am completely overqualified. This has spurred from my passion for DEI initiatives and promoting inclusion and acceptance for all people from different backgrounds. I am extremely justice oriented and will fight for what's right. Even though it's exhausting, I will fight for so that maybe the next person will have it a little bit easier."
Right, and I came across a story on Deaf Unity about a woman named Tamara, a digital marketing manager who's hard of hearing but falls into the category of deafness. Since she has a severe level of hearing loss, she explained how difficult it is to follow meetings and casual conversations, and how sometimes hearing colleagues don't realize the extra effort deaf employees must have to put in. She had to learn how to manage these challenges by explaining to others about her hearing loss, which is helpful, but imagine explaining to every new person she meets. She developed communication skills, and now she tries to open up with her closest colleagues if she needs some time for herself when she gets overwhelmed by people. Tamara even provided some extra resources for how to manage deafness in the workplace in her article for hearing and deaf individuals.
Yeah, and I completely understand where she is coming from. I can't imagine how difficult that must be. It is crucial that companies step up and provide accommodations. Whether hiring more deaf employees, providing interpreters, or investing in accessible technology. Oh, and a side note, while hearing aids and technology help, they don't necessarily fix everything. At the end of the day, these accommodations not only help deaf employees perform better, but also help the company grow and prosper more. These companies need to be more inclusive for the betterment of their business.
And that ties into a bigger discussion only about research and ethics when engaging with the deaf community. We have to remember that deaf individuals are protected by laws like the Americans with Disability Act, which requires employers to provide the necessary accommodations for deaf employees like sign language, interpreters, or captioning. It is all about making sure they have the same opportunities to thrive in the workplace.
Resources. Segment 4.
One important aspect that we can't overlook is the increasing need for research on deaf accessibility and rights, but it must be done ethically. A study by Krosick titled Ethics of Research Engagement with Deaf People talks about the need for informed consent and respecting deaf culture during the research process. The authors stress that researchers must ensure easy communication and engage with deaf individuals as equal partners, not just as subjects. This approach is the key to showing trust, collaboration, and it makes sure that the rights and voices of the deaf community are fully respected.
Correct. And it's all about empowering deaf individuals throughout the process. In the article, Let's Talk, the Texas Deaf Community Wants to Dialogue by Heather Hughes, we can read that people with hearing can often see deaf people or people with hard of hearing like a group that needs to be pitied. and incapable of living on their own. And it also explains that being deaf is nothing to be ashamed of. And that there are many people that wouldn't change a single thing in themselves, even though they haven't heard a single sound ever from the starting of their lives. And they don't even seek cures for something that doesn't even bother them. If we treat deaf people as normal people, which they are, the world could be an even more advanced place in terms of inclusion, diversity, and accepting different individuals with limited abilities than us. This change improves the quality of life and will help create a more inclusive environment where deaf people's opinions are a big part of the decisions and process of research.
Exactly. That is such an important distinction. It is important that individuals realize that the deaf community is not only about having to overcome challenges. It is about recognizing and celebrating a culture that is rich with its own unique ways of experiencing the world. We can do better at making sure deaf people are represented and included in all aspects of society.
This shows the lack of accessibility of learning sign language. However, in schools where hearing people attend, they should teach the sign language of their country. Imagine a world where schools taught sign language to students to be able to communicate with deaf individuals. We may have access to learn sign language, but people would think that they won't need it due to their surroundings not involving deaf individuals.
Conclusion.
So, to recap, we've talked about deaf education, workplace challenges, media representation, and ethical research. Even with progress being made, there's much improvement needed with the accessibility and involvement in the community. As a whole, we can improve in these areas to help the deaf community feel more involved and welcomed.
If any of you guys are interested in learning ASL or just getting more involved, there are a ton of great resources out there. Ed2Go has some online ASL courses.
Yes, Ed2Go is a great resource for those living in Laredo, Texas. This online course is available at Laredo College and can be taken as a self-guided class or instructor moderated. It allows you to explore the history and social customs of the deaf community.
And of course, you can find lots of free content on apps like YouTube or even TikTok. Education and awareness are key to building a more inclusive society. And one more thing I would like to add is how small acts of inclusion can make a huge difference. For instance, if you're working in a place where deaf employees are present or interacting with a deaf individual in your community, it's important to make the effort to communicate in ways that work for everyone. Even learning a few basic ASL signs like hello or thank you can go a long way in making someone feel seen and respected. It's about starting conversations and breaking down those barriers.
Yes, and I think that learning a little bit of ACL is such an easy way to include the deaf people in our communities, which is also benefits us by giving us another form of communication. As Kayla mentioned, we now have access to ASL lessons online. And Camila also mentioned for those people living in Laredo, we have a course in Laredo College. Hopefully, this will continue to grow and become a more mainstream. The more people who learn ASL, the easier it will be for the deaf individuals to interact with others in everyday situations. Plus, it is a skill that could open doors for us in so many fields, from healthcare to education and beyond.
With that being said, that's it for today's episode. Thank you all so much for listening in. We hope you were able to learn something new today. And if you enjoyed it, don't forget to share it with a friend or a family member. Hope you all have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Hope you come back.